My name is Maya. My husband banished me from our home on New Year's Eve because his elite boss was coming over for a holiday dinner, and my mere presence was deemed a catastrophic threat to his career. He handed me a flimsy envelope containing $200 in cash and ordered me to make myself invisible at a cheap motel across town. He had absolutely no idea that 24 hours later, he would be staring at a television screen, watching me systematically destroy everything he had ever worked for on live global broadcasting. I am 31 years old, and until very recently, I genuinely believed I had to make myself as small as possible just to fit into my own marriage. Before I continue this story, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. Hit like and subscribe if you have ever had to smile through the agonizing pain of being entirely underestimated by the person who promised to cherish you forever. It was the evening of December 30th. The air outside our Chicago luxury high-rise was freezing, with a brutal wind whipping against the towering glass windows of our master bedroom. Inside, the temperature felt infinitely colder. I stood in total silence at the foot of our massive bed, carefully folding a few dark sweaters and placing them into a modest overnight bag. The condo, a sprawling $3 million property with soaring ceilings and pristine hardwood floors, was supposed to be our ultimate sanctuary. Instead, it had become the grand stage for my absolute humiliation. Preston, my husband of 4 years, paced relentlessly at the far end of the room. He was 35 years old, a senior director at Apex Capital, and he wore his arrogance like a custom-tailored suit. He watched me pack with an expression of mild disgust, his arms crossed tightly over his chest. There was absolutely no warmth in his eyes, no trace of the man I thought I had married. He reached into his jacket pocket, pulled out a thin white envelope, and tossed it onto the mattress. It landed with a soft thud right next to my winter coat. "Take this," he ordered, his voice clipped and entirely devoid of affection. "There is $200 inside. Find a quiet motel somewhere in the suburbs and stay there until the 2nd of January. Do not use our joint credit cards. Do not leave a digital paper trail that points back to this address." I stopped folding a sweater and looked up at him. I could feel my heart pounding aggressively against my ribs, but I forced my face to remain completely blank. "Richard Vance is flying into the city tomorrow morning." Preston continued pacing again. "He is the managing partner of my firm Maya. The man holds my entire future in the palm of his hand. He and his daughter are staying here for the holiday weekend. This is my one absolute shot to secure the vice president position. I cannot afford any distractions. I cannot afford you." He stopped pacing and stepped closer to me, looking down his nose. "You know exactly how you are, Maya. Your messy robotics lifestyle, your late nights staring at a computer screen, your awkward social presence. It is all going to deeply embarrass me." Richard expects perfection. He expects a high society environment. You walking around in oversized hoodies mumbling about your little artificial intelligence blogs will ruin my chances completely. You simply do not fit the image I need to project to the partners. The cruelty of his words hung heavily in the quiet room. He was kicking me out of my own home for New Year's Eve, so he could play the role of the wealthy, successful bachelor playing host to his billionaire boss. He did not care where I slept or how I spent the holiday, as long as I was entirely out of his way. "And I want absolute silence," Preston added, his tone sharpening into a vicious threat. "No phone calls, no text messages, no checking in to see how the dinner is going. You do not exist for the next 3 days." I looked down at the cheap white envelope on the bed. $200 for a holiday weekend in a freezing city. It was a profound insult, wrapped in a banishment, but the truth was, this exact moment had been building for years. Throughout our marriage, Preston had constantly chipped away at my self-esteem. He treated my work like a trivial hobby. While he did the real heavy lifting at his venture capital firm, he belittled my wardrobe, my friends, and my quiet nature. His entire family treated me with the exact same suffocating condescension. They openly wondered what he saw in me, whispering about how I was a freeloader riding his expensive coattails. I had shrunk my entire existence to ensure his massive ego had enough room to expand. But as I stared at the envelope, something inside me finally and permanently snapped. The years of quiet submission evaporated, entirely replaced by a cold, calculating clarity. I slipped the cash envelope into my pocket. I zipped up my heavy leather bag and slung the strap over my shoulder. "Understood," I said, my voice eerily calm. Preston let out a long breath, looking visibly relieved. He watched me slowly shoulder the heavy bag, a cruel smirk resting on his lips. "My parents and Gemma will be arriving tomorrow afternoon," he announced, crossing his arms. "They are helping me host Richard and his daughter. It has to look like a supportive, wealthy family unit. And before you think about calling my mother to cry about this, do not bother. I already spoke to them this morning. She thinks you are an embarrassment, just like I do. Gemma said having you here while I try to entertain the boss would be professional suicide." I gave him absolutely nothing. I turned away from him in absolute silence and walked over to my small desk. I pulled open the bottom drawer and lifted out my sleek silver work laptop. It was packed with heavily encrypted files, highly confidential proprietary schematics, and the complex financial blueprints of an AI robotics company currently valued at $4 billion. I slipped the device gently into the padded compartment of my travel bag. "Are you even listening to me?" Preston snapped, his voice rising. "I am telling you that my entire family agrees. You are a dead weight." I turned around to face him, my expression completely blank. "I heard you perfectly, Preston," I said softly, my tone completely flat. I walked right past him, headed down the wide, floating staircase. I looked around the pristine condo as I descended the expensive property I had covertly paid the massive down payment for using hidden funds from a corporate shell company, because Preston had blatantly lied about his personal financial stability right before we got married. We reached the massive kitchen with its gleaming dark countertops. I reached deep into my heavy winter coat pocket and pulled out my thick ring of keys. I unhooked the brass key to the condo and let it drop. It hit the hard counter with a sharp, resonant clink. I did not need it anymore. I turned slowly toward the heavy front door. "Have a happy New Year, Preston," I said. I stepped out into the corridor and pulled the heavy door firmly shut behind me. Preston genuinely thought he had just banished a helpless, socially awkward, and pathetic failure out into the freezing cold night. He had absolutely no idea he had just unleashed an absolute predator. I stepped out of the luxury high-rise lobby. Just one block away, a sleek black luxury SUV sat idling quietly against the curb. My private driver immediately stepped out, pulling open the rear passenger door for me. "The Langham, please," I replied, my voice steady and commanding. The heavy vehicle pulled away smoothly from the curb. I reached into my deep coat pocket and pulled out the white envelope Preston had tossed at me. I rolled down the window just a crack, feeling the icy air rush in, and tossed the envelope out into the violent snowstorm. I watched it disappear into the white blur, gone forever. We arrived at the Langham shortly after. The towering facade glowed with warm, welcoming golden light. I bypassed the standard reception line entirely and walked directly toward the private concierge desk reserved exclusively for elite guests. "I need the presidential suite for the next 3 nights," I said. I reached into my bag and pulled out a heavy matte black titanium card. It bore no personal name, only a sleek embedded tracking chip. It was directly linked to the anonymous corporate trust that governed my massive personal wealth. The concierge swiped it through the reader. The computer screen flashed an instant, unquestioned approval. A private elevator whisked me up to the top floor. The polished doors slid open to reveal a massive, breathtaking suite. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a sweeping, uninterrupted panoramic view of the snowy Chicago skyline. Preston truly believed I was currently shivering in a run-down roadside room. He was fatally wrong. I was entirely financially independent. I possessed infinitely more wealth and corporate influence than Preston and his entire prestigious venture capital firm combined. I had spent the last 5 years quietly building Aegis Dynamics, an artificial intelligence and automation empire, from the ground up. I had worn my simple clothes and kept my head down at home because I genuinely loved him. But Preston had mistaken my quiet humility for weakness. I walked over to the plush velvet sofa and unzipped my travel bag. I pulled out my silver laptop and set it firmly on the glass coffee table. I poured myself a cup of the hot coffee the butler had just silently delivered, took a slow sip, and began typing. I connected my device to the hotel high-speed network, establishing a secure, encrypted tunnel directly to my private servers. I opened the security interface application and typed in a complex alphanumeric password. A grid of high-definition video feeds instantly popped up on my screen, displaying every major room of the Chicago condo in crystal-clear color. I had installed these hidden cameras covertly 6 months ago, when Preston had become incredibly distant and cruel. Now, staring at the grid, I felt nothing but a cold, clinical curiosity. At exactly 1 o'clock in the afternoon, the next day, the doorbell rang. Preston rushed into the frame, wearing an incredibly expensive cashmere sweater. He pulled the heavy door open. A young woman stepped out of the corridor. She was 26 years old, draped in a luxurious designer wool coat. I recognized her instantly. It was Camilla Vance, Richard Vance's pampered, highly entitled daughter. Preston slammed the front door shut, grabbed Camilla by the waist, and pulled her violently against his chest. I watched in absolute silence as my husband kissed another woman right in the center of the foyer I had designed. "I missed you so much," Preston whispered, burying his face in her neck. "I thought you would never get rid of her," she said, pulling back to look at him. "She is gone." Preston promised, kissing her again. I sent her to a cheap motel with cash. She walked out into the cold like a beaten dog. Camilla smiled, running her manicured fingers over the lapel of his sweater. "My father has absolutely no idea. I came here early to be with you. But you know he is going to promote you, right? As soon as you finalize the divorce and get rid of that dead weight my father is making you, Vice President, I will file the papers tomorrow," Preston assured her, pouring them both a glass of wine. "I just need to make sure I secure my half of this condo first. The market value has skyrocketed. Once I force a sale, I will have plenty of cash to buy us a townhouse downtown. She will not fight me on it. She is too weak to hire a real lawyer." The audacity of his delusion was staggering. He was actively plotting to steal the house I bought using my hidden wealth to fund a new luxurious life with his boss's daughter. He genuinely believed he had masterminded the perfect crime. I reached out and tapped a key on my laptop, setting the security system to record and back up every single second of their illicit holiday retreat directly to my secure cloud servers. The digital clock on my screen struck 4. The motion sensors in my private elevator lobby triggered an alert. Preston's parents walked in, shaking the cold from their coats. His sister Gemma followed closely behind. Trailing them was Caleb, Gemma's husband. He was a brilliant software engineer, an observant man who always seemed out of place among Preston's pretentious family. While the others bustled inside with loud voices, Caleb simply wiped his boots and stepped inside without saying a word. Preston's mother gasped in delight, rushing forward to wrap Camilla in a massive, enthusiastic embrace. "Camilla, darling," his mother gushed. "It is wonderful to finally see you in this house." Preston's father offered Camilla a warm hug. Gemma pushed past her parents, squealing with loud excitement. There was zero shock. There was no confusion. They knew. They had known all along. I sat frozen, my hands gripping the glass coffee table. These were the people I hosted for 4 consecutive years. And here they were joyfully embracing the woman who was sleeping with my husband. Preston popped the cork on a vintage bottle of champagne, one I had specifically purchased. He poured generous glasses for his parents, his sister, and Camilla, completely ignoring Caleb sitting in the corner. "I want to propose a toast," Preston announced. "To family, to the future, and to moving up in the world." Gemma took a sip of champagne and sighed loudly. "Honestly, Preston, it is an absolute breath of fresh air walking into this house and not seeing Maya moping around in her oversized sweaters. That woman brought the entire property value down just by standing quietly in the kitchen." Camilla laughed, a cruel, ringing sound. "She is a complete dead weight," his father agreed, shaking his head. "Thank goodness she is finally gone," his mother added. "We are just so incredibly relieved," Preston is finally getting rid of that freeloader. The word struck me like a physical blow. Freeloader. They were sitting on a custom Italian sofa I had paid for. They were basking in the warmth of a luxury home that my hidden technology empire had fully funded. Every single piece of their comfort in that room was a direct result of my hard work and massive financial sacrifice. The agonizing pain of their betrayal slowly dissolved, burning away until absolutely nothing remained but a hardened, terrifying resolve. While the rest of Preston's family eagerly raised their expensive crystal flutes, Caleb remained completely motionless. Caleb had always seen right through their superficial performances. Whenever Preston's mother made passive-aggressive comments about my clothing, Caleb was the only one who would subtly shift the conversation to protect me. Right now, on the high-definition security feed, his jaw was clenched tight. He had refused the drink entirely. Preston noticed the glaring lack of participation. "Are you not going to toast to our future?" Caleb Preston asked, his voice dripping with arrogant challenge. Caleb slowly pulled his hands from his pockets and leaned forward. "I am not toasting to infidelity, Preston," Caleb said, his tone entirely devoid of warmth. "And I am certainly not going to sit here and celebrate you throwing your wife out into the cold on New Year's Eve. It is pathetic." The entire room went dead silent. "How dare you," Preston snapped, taking a threatening step toward his brother-in-law. Caleb stood up slowly, forcing my husband to take a hesitant step back. "You do not own this house," Preston Caleb stated coldly. "I am going to get some air." He turned his back on the stunned room and walked purposefully down the hallway, entering the kitchen. He leaned against the dark granite island, pulled out his phone and began typing rapidly. A second later, the heavy silence in my hotel suite was broken by the sharp vibration of my personal cell phone. A new message from Caleb illuminated the screen. "Maya, I am so sorry. I had no idea what Preston was planning until we walked through the front door. I am not part of this sick play. Do you need a divorce lawyer?" I read the words twice, a cold, dangerous smile spreading slowly across my face. Caleb was a good man, willing to risk his own marriage to Gemma just to pull me out of the wreckage. I tapped the glass screen of my phone, my fingers flying across the digital keyboard. "No need. Keep quiet and watch the show." "Thank you, Caleb." I hit send. Back on the security feed, I watched Caleb read my response, his brow furrowed in deep confusion. He slowly pocketed his phone, turning back toward the hallway. I minimized the security application and brought my encrypted central dashboard to the forefront of the screen. I placed my finger on the biometric sensor, granting me full access to the inner workings of Aegis Dynamics. Aegis was not a small, struggling blog. It was a massive industry-defining automation startup that I had founded from scratch precisely 5 years ago. My algorithms utilized machine learning to revolutionize industrial robotics. By the time Preston was complaining to his mother about my lack of ambition, Aegis had officially surpassed a $4 billion valuation. I had built an impenetrable legal fortress to protect my life's work. My name was meticulously scrubbed from every single public record. On paper, Aegis was managed by a faceless proxy board of directors and an anonymous majority shareholder known only as the founder. I pulled up the latest financial prospectus on my screen. Aegis was officially preparing for its initial public offering. Wall Street was frothing at the mouth, eager to underwrite the massive transaction. I opened my secure email client. The inbox was flooded with high-priority messages from my proxy board, forwarding the latest highly aggressive pitches from the most prestigious venture capital firms in the country. My lead corporate strategist had highlighted a short list of aggressive firms making desperate bids. Sitting at the absolute top of the desperate applicant pool was a sleek gold crest displaying the name Apex Capital. A harsh, humorless laugh escaped my throat. Richard Vance, the very man my husband was currently attempting to impress, was currently waiting in my digital lobby, desperate for my attention. I opened the attached proposal submitted by Richard Vance himself. "To ensure your complete satisfaction," Richard had written, "I will personally oversee the high-level strategy. However, the day-to-day operations will be spearheaded by my best senior director, Preston." He is a brilliant, ruthless director who understands the absolute necessity of perfection. Securing the Aegis IPO is our top priority, and I have personally promised Preston that delivering this account will immediately secure his promotion to vice president at our firm. We are hungry for this, and we will not fail you. Julian was the lead director assigned to win my account. The entire foundation of Preston's towering arrogance rested squarely in the palm of my hand. I pulled up the corporate response interface, establishing a secure connection to my proxy board. I instructed them to immediately string Richard Vance along. I wanted Apex Capital to believe they were the absolute frontrunners. I wanted Preston working through the holidays, obsessing over my company, dedicating every ounce of his energy to securing a deal that I was going to publicly weaponize against him. The quiet of the luxurious hotel suite was suddenly broken by a sharp, piercing ringtone from my heavily encrypted military-grade satellite phone. I picked up the heavy black phone, swiped my thumb across the scanner, and answered. "We have a major development." Founder, my lead proxy executive, stated immediately. "The chairman of the Global AI Innovation Awards insists on speaking with you personally. It is highly urgent." A brief click echoed on the line, followed by the deep, resonant voice of the billionaire chairman. "I am calling tonight with phenomenal news. The voting committee has reached a unanimous decision. You have won the grand prize for Tech Visionary of the Year." I stood perfectly still. "Thank you," I replied, keeping my voice incredibly calm. "There is a slight complication," the chairman continued. "The event is tomorrow night, New Year's Eve. We have secured an exclusive broadcasting partnership with the major financial networks. The ceremony will be aired live on primetime national television. I am personally asking you to step out of the shadows. I am asking you to attend the gala in person tomorrow night and accept this award on live television." My mind raced with calculating speed. Tomorrow night, Preston was hosting Richard Vance for a high-stakes holiday dinner at my condo. Richard would absolutely force his ambitious director to watch the broadcast. They would sit in my living room drinking my champagne, watching the screen with desperate, greedy eyes, waiting to analyze the anonymous billionaire they were trying to court. "You have a deal," I said, my voice dropping to a dangerously smooth pitch. "I will attend the gala in person tomorrow night." I ended the secure call and placed the satellite phone down. I opened a direct, heavily encrypted video link to Geneva. Within 3 seconds, the face of my primary asset manager appeared on the screen. "Execute a complete financial lockdown on the Chicago domestic accounts," I commanded. "I want Preston completely severed from the master trust." For the last 4 years, I had heavily subsidized his lavish lifestyle. Drain the balances back into the primary corporate holding fund. Leave him with exactly what his paycheck deposited over the past 6 months, minus the personal expenses he already charged. Accounts are being drained. Now, my asset manager typed rapidly. "Cancel every single black titanium card tied to my corporate guarantor," I said. "I want them to decline the very next time he tries to swipe them." Done. Moving on to the real estate assets, the Chicago property. I had saved him by purchasing the property outright in cash, through my anonymous trust. "Revoke his authorized occupant status," I commanded. "Transfer the property assignment entirely back to the absolute control of the Aegis proxy board. He is now legally classified as a trespasser. Schedule the eviction enforcement for New Year's Day morning. Let the local police and my private security team handle the physical removal after the broadcast airs tonight." I leaned back against the plush velvet sofa, watching the confirmation prompts flashing rapidly across my screen. Every single pillar of Preston's carefully constructed, arrogant life was being systematically dismantled with a few keystrokes. As the premier styling team worked meticulously on my hair and makeup the next evening, I sat perfectly still in the plush velvet chair of my hotel suite. My secure tablet rested on my lap, streaming the live, high-definition security feed from the condo. It was New Year's Eve. At exactly 6 o'clock, the private elevator doors opened. Richard Vance stepped into the warm foyer, brushing snowflakes from his expensive cashmere overcoat. Preston played the role of the wealthy, successful master of the house flawlessly. He ushered his boss into the expansive living room where the massive marble fireplace crackled warmly. "Richard, please make yourself comfortable," Preston announced, pouring pristine, vintage champagne into imported crystal glasses. "I must say, Preston, this property is truly magnificent," Richard stated, setting his glass down onto the table. "It shows exceptional financial acumen." Julian leaned back in his chair, swirling his glass with a look of profound arrogance. "Thank you, Richard." Preston smiled, looking directly at Camilla. "I view this house as the foundational bedrock of my legacy." "Speaking of your foundation," Richard said, turning slightly more serious, "Camilla mentioned your current domestic situation. A messy marital dispute is bad for business, especially when we are actively courting a $4 billion account like Aegis Dynamics. The anonymous founder of that company demands absolute ethical perfection. You have my absolute assurance, Richard, that the situation is entirely resolved," Preston said smoothly. "My current wife is completely out of the picture. She was quite frankly a massive dead weight holding me back. She lacked the sophistication required to stand beside a vice president. I am filing the final divorce papers tomorrow morning." "Ambition requires ruthless decisions," Richard announced, raising his glass of my stolen champagne. "Secure this divorce quietly. Bring me the Aegis account by next week, and the vice president office is yours." The table erupted in joyful cheers. Preston's mother clapped her hands together in delight, while his sister Gemma raised her glass high. I locked the tablet screen, my heart beating with the steady, calm rhythm of a predator about to strike. I stood up, smoothing the fabric of my stunning evening gown. It was time to give Preston exactly what he asked for. I wore a custom crimson silk gown that clung to my frame like armor. Diamonds rested against my collarbone, catching the light with sharp brilliance. I was no longer hiding. Miles away inside the warm living room of my condo, Richard checked his heavy platinum watch. He stood up from the dining table. "Enough talking about strategy," Richard commanded. "Preston, go turn on the television. Put it on the financial network immediately." The organizers of the AI Innovation Awards contacted my office earlier today. The anonymous founder of Aegis Dynamics is finally stepping out of the shadows. She is attending the gala in person tonight to accept the grand prize on live national television. A collective gasp echoed through the room. Preston rushed into the living room, grabbing the remote control and pointing it frantically at the massive flat-screen television. "Pay close attention to this broadcast," Richard ordered, not taking his eyes off the screen. "I want you analyzing her body language from the exact second she steps onto that stage. I will own the room." Richard Preston promised, his arrogance blinding him to reality. "By next week, she will be eating out of the palm of my hand." I stepped out of the black stretch limousine in front of the Grand Convention Center. Through the tinted glass, I saw a blinding sea of flashing camera lights. My security detail formed a tight, impenetrable wedge around me, moving with military precision to slice through the chaotic frenzy. We bypassed the main press area, entirely walking swiftly past the bewildered celebrities. On the television, the host raised his hands to quiet the cheering crowd. "Tonight, the long shadows finally disappear," the host declared loudly, tearing open the seal. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the brilliant mind behind Aegis Dynamics, our tech visionary of the year, Maya." The television camera panned swiftly across the sea of standing ovations, cutting through the crowded, glittering auditorium before locking directly onto me. The intense spotlight hit me like a physical force. I stepped out from the heavy velvet curtains, the rich crimson silk of my custom-tailored gown flowing flawlessly around my silhouette. I walked slowly up the carpeted steps toward the crystal podium, projecting a ruthless grace that left the entire corporate world utterly mesmerized. Inside the Chicago condo, the festive, arrogant atmosphere died instantly. Total deafening silence descended upon the living room. Preston's mother let out a sharp, breathless gasp. The expensive porcelain plate she held slipped from her fingers and crashed onto the polished hardwood floor. Preston stopped breathing. When my face filled the massive screen in perfect, undeniable clarity, his entire body went completely rigid. The color drained entirely from his face, leaving his skin a sickly ashen gray. He stood up so fast that the heavy armchair tipped backward and crashed heavily onto the floor behind him. The crystal champagne flute he was holding slipped right through his numb fingers, shattering into countless jagged pieces. "No," Preston stammered, his voice barely a choked, breathless whisper. "No, that is impossible." He was staring at the woman he had banished to a cheap motel with a flimsy envelope of cash just 24 hours ago. Now he was watching me stand at the absolute pinnacle of global corporate power, holding the massive keys to the $4 billion empire. His prestigious venture capital firm was desperately begging to underwrite. Camilla Vance sat frozen on the sofa, her hand covering her open mouth. She realized she was sitting in a house owned by the very billionaire her powerful father was desperately trying to court. Richard Vance stood perfectly still, his glass of wine suspended halfway to his mouth. His sharp executive mind rapidly calculated the catastrophic implications. He realized instantly that his ambitious senior director had actively insulted and humiliated the anonymous founder of Aegis on the very eve of their massive corporate pitch. In the corner of the room, Caleb watched the devastation unfold with quiet, immense satisfaction. He remained seated in his accent chair, his arms crossed tightly over his chest. A slow, knowing smile touched the corners of his mouth. On the screen, I reached the crystal podium. I placed my hands firmly on the edges of the stand and looked directly into the camera lens. I knew Preston was standing in my living room, staring at my face, completely drowning in a sea of his own shattered arrogance. I let a sharp, confident smile cross my lips. "Good evening," I began. My voice was steady, calm, and echoed with absolute authority across the national broadcast. For 5 years, I have operated entirely in the shadows. I built Aegis with a singular, unyielding vision to revolutionize robotics. Many people mistook that silence for weakness. They assumed a lack of public bravado meant a lack of ambition. They were fatally wrong. In the condo, every syllable I spoke landed like a physical blow. Richard Vance stopped breathing. He recognized that the $4 billion account his entire firm was desperately fighting to secure belonged solely to the woman his director had just banished. I continued my speech, my voice carrying the immense weight of a multi-billion-dollar empire. As we prepare to take Aegis Dynamics public, I announced, my voice slicing through the quiet room with razor-sharp clarity. We have been evaluating the partnerships that will guide us into this next chapter. When I founded this company, I built it on a foundation of absolute transparency, unwavering ethics, and relentless integrity. Those are the strict, non-negotiable requirements for anyone who wishes to sit at our table. I paused, letting a cold, humorless smile touch my lips. I looked dead into the camera lens, stripping away the corporate facade to deliver a direct, highly personal execution. Transparency and ethics are our core values, I announced to millions of viewers. Which is why Aegis is officially publicly rejecting the bid from Apex Capital. A collective deafening gasp erupted across the grand auditorium. Publicly rejecting a major firm on live national television during an award broadcast was a brutal, catastrophic blow to the firm's reputation. But I was not finished. We refused to do business with a firm whose senior director Preston lacks basic moral integrity, I declared, driving the final nail directly into his coffin. A man currently lying about his personal assets, acting as a financial parasite, and bringing his mistress into a home entirely bought and paid for by his wife, right on New Year's Eve. The camera zoomed in on my face, broadcasting my absolute disdain to the entire world. I let a sharp, terrifying smirk cross my face. "Happy New Year, Preston." The auditorium exploded into absolute chaos. Miles away inside the lavishly decorated living room of my condo, the psychological devastation was absolute. Preston stood rooted to the hardwood floor, surrounded by the shattered glass. His entire meticulously crafted reality had just been incinerated in front of his boss and his family. Richard Vance moved. He charged forward like a furious bull, delivering a vicious slap directly across Preston's face. The sharp cracking sound echoed like a gunshot. "You absolute idiot!" Richard roared, spit flying from his lips. "You arrogant, incompetent fool." You just destroyed my entire firm on national television. Richard, please, I can explain. Preston stammered desperately. You told me she was a pathetic liability. Richard screamed, pushing Preston backwards so hard he crashed heavily into the glass coffee table. The Aegis account is gone. Every major client we currently have will see this broadcast and pull their business by tomorrow morning. You are fired. Effective immediately. You are stripped of your title, your salary, and your corporate standing. I will personally make sure you are blacklisted for financial fraud. Hand over your corporate phone and your access badge right now. Preston fumbled in his pockets, handing them over with trembling fingers. Camilla, get your coat, Richard commanded. We are leaving this stolen property right now. Camilla let out a sharp, cruel scoff. Are we going to figure out how to live in a cardboard box? She demanded. You lied to me. You are nothing but a cheap parasite who got caught trying to play in a league you do not belong in. Do not ever contact me again. She followed her furious father out of the living room. The heavy front door slammed shut, sending a violent shudder through the entire condo. Preston collapsed onto his knees, burying his face in his hands. A raw, agonizing sob tore through his throat. His mother and father remained frozen on the love seat, completely paralyzed. His father frantically pulled his cell phone from his pocket, dialing my number. The number you are trying to reach is currently unavailable, the robotic voice announced coldly. I had initiated a total communication blackout. She is gone, Preston whispered, staring blankly at his useless phone. She took everything. Caleb stood up from his accent chair in the corner of the room. He zipped up his heavy winter coat. Get your coat, Gemma. Caleb ordered, his voice steady and resolute. We are leaving. Caleb did not offer a single word of comfort. He simply turned and walked toward the front door, pulling his wife along with him, leaving the rest of them to choke on the bitter ashes of their ruined lives. New Year's Day morning broke over Chicago with a blinding, pristine brightness. Inside the sprawling condo, there was no festive joy. Preston lay awake on the living room floor, staring blankly at the massive television screen. His parents were huddled together on the plush sofa, shivering despite the expensive heating system. At exactly 8 o'clock in the morning, a series of heavy, authoritative knocks echoed violently through the silent condo. Preston jumped to his feet, sprinting to the door and pulling it open, his rehearsed apologies already forming on his lips. But I was not standing in the hallway. Instead, Preston found himself staring directly into the stern, uncompromising faces of two uniformed Chicago police officers. Behind them stood a highly intimidating team of 4 private security contractors. Preston, the officer stated, his voice completely devoid of holiday cheer. We are here to execute an immediate court-ordered eviction on behalf of the Aegis Corporate Trust. You and all other occupants are required to vacate these premises immediately. You are legally classified as an unauthorized squatter, the officer explained coldly. The deed to this property belongs exclusively to a corporate holding company. You have exactly 10 minutes to gather your personal clothing and exit the property. Preston frantically pulled out his phone, his hands shaking violently as he opened his banking application. The application loaded slowly, then displayed a bold, glaring error message. Account frozen. Available balance is $0. He swiped frantically to his credit cards. Every single black titanium card was marked with a bright red suspended status. The realization hit him like a physical punch to the gut. The financial lockdown was absolute. He had no money, no credit, and no assets. The private security team moved into the house with ruthless efficiency and de tame. They systematically directed Preston and his terrified parents out of the warm foyer and directly into the private elevator. The heavy front door slammed shut with a definitive final thud, locking automatically behind them. Preston stood on the freezing city sidewalk, wearing a stained sweater and holding a useless plastic phone. His mother began to wail miserably, wrapping her arms around herself as the freezing wind whipped against her skin. They were homeless, penniless, and entirely isolated on New Year's Day morning. Half a block down the street, I sat comfortably in the heated leather interior of a sleek black luxury SUV. The tinted windows completely shielded me from their view, but I had a perfect, unobstructed sightline to their absolute misery. I watched the arrogant man who had tried to banish me shivering uncontrollably in the snow. My encrypted phone vibrated gently in my lap. I picked it up and read a new text message from Caleb. "Gemma and I left last night. The trash is taking itself out. Proud of you, CEO." I smiled a genuine, radiant smile that reached my eyes. The toxic past was finally severed. I locked my phone and tapped the privacy glass separating me from my driver. "Take me to the private airfield," I instructed calmly. The heavy vehicle pulled away smoothly, leaving Preston and his shattered family permanently in the cold. I leaned back into the plush leather, watching the snow-covered streets fly by, ready to board my jet and fly directly toward a sun-drenched private island where my brilliant new life was just beginning. The story of Maya's silent but absolute triumph over her emotionally abusive husband Preston and his opportunistic family serves as a profound masterclass in recognizing one's own worth. For years, Maya endured relentless belittlement, shrinking her life to accommodate the fragile ego of a man who viewed her as a liability. The core lesson embedded in this narrative is that true power lies in self-reliance and the refusal to let others dictate your value. Maya did not need to scream, beg, or argue to prove her worth to people committed to misunderstanding her. Instead, she quietly built an impenetrable foundation of success and financial independence. Her journey illustrates the immense danger of shrinking ourselves to fit into environments that refuse to respect us. We learn that we owe absolutely no loyalty to those who actively exploit our sacrifices. Walking away from a toxic environment is never a sign of weakness. It is the ultimate display of strength and self-respect. Ultimately, Maya's transformation from an accommodating partner to an empowered leader reminds us to fiercely guard our energy and cultivate our own independence. Never allow someone else's deep-seated insecurity to convince you that you are anything less than extraordinary. If you are currently compromising your brilliance to keep the peace in a toxic relationship, take back your power today and start building the spectacular future you truly deserve.